Hey everybody, Bob Lucero here from All Things Leland, and we are going to be talking today with folks from We Live Here Leland, a grassroots organization dedicated to the betterment of the community we call home. I love these ideas of people saying we want to make a positive difference in our community. So welcome Trish, Ernie, and Maggie. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Hi,
Right.
thank you.
Hi, thank you very much. So, Trish, I'll start with you. What was the inspiration of this organization?
I will first qualify by saying organization is a strong term for what we are. We call ourselves kind of a ragtag group of highly social purpose-driven people. We originally came together. I moved to Leland. It's been a long time, over a decade ago now. And I tell people I moved here for a dog because my dog liked my then boyfriend's backyard better than mine, and we shared the dog. So I moved to Leland, and in really just becoming more engaged with my neighbors and my neighborhood, and met Ernie and Maggie. And it really just kind of bloomed from there. I have always kind of picked up litter as a mental release and a stress release for doing something tangible in the given the state of the world. So I started picking up litter individually, and then over the course of several years, that kind of evolved into a more organized effort. And I really count, I think it was spring of 2023 when Maggie and Ernie joined my husband and me in our first inaugural litter pickup as a group. And I really do see that as the beginning of the official We Live Here effort. So we kind of expanded to focus on things that are very tangible and that I would even say are universal. That where we focus on the importance of trees, trash, transportation, and trails. And we do it in a way that works to bring our community together. So we do consider ourselves more of a community building
Mhm.
effort than anything, but we certainly want to do it in ways that leave tangible things and results in our community and in our built environment that make it easier to build and foster community. So.
That's great. It's a nice way to, hey, we want to do something, and then you have like-minded folks who want to pitch in and make a difference. So I won't use the word organization, but and you mentioned trees, trash, transportation, and trails. As you look at them, is it you try to do one a quarter, one of the projects during the year? How do you prioritize that?
We get together, and like Bob, you're aware of, we have what we call the We Live Here beer board. And for those of us who don't drink, we've expanded it to be called the beer kombucha board, where we meet now monthly. It used to be a little bit more haphazard, but now monthly, to really kind of think through what do we want to accomplish over the next couple of months, over the next year. And we go from there. Our priority area has always been the Westgate district, over
Mhm.
where the new Lowe's Home Improvement is, because that's where many of us, that's our origin story. That's where many of us met and many of us kind of lived. And that's also an area that reflects a lot of rapid development. So it was seemed like a really nice anchoring location to bring people together to really improve our particular part of the community. But within those areas, or in this kind of big domains, it's usually kind of a mix of opportunities that have kind of presented themselves,
Mhm.
and then things that we want to do as kind of part of our signature activities. So usually we have 2 to 3 events a quarter. We try to make them fun. We try to make them things that people can rely on so they know it's going to happen. And then we also just really enjoy kind of folding in some stuff that may be spontaneous or that was not necessarily expected. But that certainly aligns with what we're trying to do, and we enjoy supporting those efforts. So Maggie and Ernie, do you all want to reflect on
I mean,
anything?
yeah, back to, yeah, kind of our origin story, really starting with the trash pickup and from the day that we met Trish, and all of this kind of happened through the neighborhood and word of mouth through the neighbors that this was going on. And so we showed up and just
Hmm.
never left. But from that day, I'd say we consistently met. At least the trash pickup was pretty consistent for the quarterly pickup. And then we adopted Plouffe Road, which was another reason we
Mhm.
kind of focus on that area because we working with DOT and that adopted road specifically was kind of our obligation. But
Mhm.
then partnering with Lend a Hand for the Leland setup, which was we had started what we did one
We've
was it just
done
the 1 year and then it was
three
two the
now.
next yeah,
Yeah.
so three total. And with that, expanding beyond Plouffe in that area, but Lowe's has been wonderful with us and working with us, and they have volunteers come out and they've donated equipment. And so we definitely tried to kind of focus on the front of their area as well because they've been wonderful to work with, and then trying to branch out with some of the other corporations in the area, just trying to get more involvement with them of feeling like we're a team with not
Mhm.
only the people that live here, but the corporations as well of we are a growing city and
Mhm.
with that comes more trash and
Sure.
more people and more traffic and just trying to make it a place that is safe and still beautiful. We love the trees. We love, walkable spaces and what can we do to help make it more walkable? And again, with Lowe's, like they were the first ones that really helped out with us even getting to plant some trees. And I don't remember our total now of trees planted in that area, but it's
40.
it's more than
Wow.
zero. So yeah, 40. And I'm like, that's great. And 10 years from now, the people that have come to help plant the trees, they can bring their family out and the kids that have been involved as well. Like as they grow up, can come by and walk by and be like, we planted this tree and,
Hmm.
take a little pride in
Yeah,
honestly such a
that's a
simple
nice tree
way.
canopy. That's a nice tree canopy, and obviously it'd be a lot of work for just three people. So maybe Ernie, you could tell. I mean, how big do these events get? How, they probably grow and shrink depending on what's going on.
Oh yeah, I mean, even I think even our first group event that we thought was absolutely huge was probably only like 10 to 12 people initially. And most of the time it's just like our at the time our neighbors. We would get together and we'd go pick up trash along Plouffe Road. But then I remember we set up near the what we call the Red Barn at Lowe's, and I want to say it was the first Linda Hand event.
Hmm.
But we had, I mean, what do you think? Like upwards of
It was
around like
around 40. Yeah.
40, yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely grown.
And we initially had just been again just that roughly 10 to 12 people, pretty strong. And when we did the Lindahan event, blowing up to just 40 people was crazy. And each event since then has, I feel like, has
Hmm.
stayed consistent. And on top of that, the amount of people from Lowe's that we got, I think we even got some local volunteer firefighters at one point to
Hmm.
help plant trees. So yeah,
That's great.
it's yeah, it's awesome just the amount of people that actually want to come out and help pick up trash, plant trees, and just kind of survey our walkable spaces just to see what could be better. So,
I think that's a good, just a, as we grow, one of the things that has been, I think, kind of a cornerstone of how we work and how we kind of walk in the world is that we really do collaborate really well, or we try to. That's our aspiration is to be a good collaborator, but to collaborate with sister organizations on different efforts. So, for example, we, will support trail maintenance work with our friends at the Coastal Land Trust who maintain the trails at Brunswick Nature Park and at Ev Henwood. So every time the Land Trust has an event. Lauren, their head coordinator, and I work out kind of the dates so that we can make sure to also support the efforts through We Live Here. Or like a lot of our walkability analysis and
Mhm.
advocacy has really been in partnership with AARP, who you probably are
Mhm.
aware have a very strong livable community initiative nationally. So our friends at AARP are natural partners in those efforts. And so when we do have events like, Pint with a Planner, the announcements can go out to a lot of people. So we'll have, 50, 60 sometimes maybe even more at those
Right.
events because they're done in collaboration with other organizations. So,
I love that whole idea of talking to the folks that have the responsibility for planning because people move
mhm,
from different places to Leland. So what could happen in Virginia where we moved from, or New York and New Jersey,
mhm,
as some of my neighbors, is totally different in a state like North Carolina.
yeah.
Just going back to the trees for a second. So the trees get planted and they're watered. I mean, is there a partner to make sure that in the long run they're maintained?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was actually, the whole kind of concept of from the very beginning, we didn't want to have an unsustainable effort. Like there's, it's one thing not to have trees, it's another thing to try to plant trees and them not live because of the efforts not being sustainable. And so one of the reasons that we've worked kind of diligently with our wonderful town team is to build and to plant, or rather plant, not build, but to plant at a rate that feels sustainable to the town
Hmm.
because the town assumes the ongoing maintenance.
Sure.
And that was really important for us. We knew that, as an organized effort, again, we're not an organization, but as an
Hmm.
organized effort, we couldn't necessarily be reliable enough to sustain the maintenance of those trees. And so, and frankly, I remember the wonderful Ben Andrea, who's the head of planning, and I having a conversation, given some of the planning decisions that are made in our town, the town also has a responsibility to reinvest in recreating a canopy. And so kind of with that in mind, we worked really closely with our maintenance team, our town maintenance team, to decide, okay, they can take on X number of trees each quarter or X number of trees each year. And so that's what we plant. And what's
Sure.
exciting, and I was just talking to Kim, who maintains those trees at an event a couple weeks ago, and it's like it's part of their operational culture now, which is really exciting, right? Because that means that we can start scaling even bigger and we can start thinking about, okay, if we were to get these kind of resources, we could potentially even have more trees because we could have resources to help support the watering and things like that. So we had to start small in order for everybody to kind of buy into a proof of concept. But now it's like we're starting to think bigger, and we're starting to think bigger together, which is exciting.
Well, I mean, there's groups like the Alliance for Cape Fear Trees.
Hmm.
I mean, how do they help inform your work? Please do not plant a Bradford pear, right? I mean,
Right.
every landscape ordinance in the world now is eliminating them from the list of things that should be planted. So there are partners. So you have Lowe's, you have the town, but there's groups like Alliance for Cape Fear Trees. How do they play into all of this to help you?
Absolutely. So, first of all, I also need to give a shout out to the North Carolina State Cooperative Extension, because they have actually been kind of our tree advisors and tree spiritual guides as because we love trees, but we don't know trees, right? Like we're not tree subject matter experts. We just know we want the canopy that makes it better to walk. And so, in the early days of the tree planting efforts, the North Carolina Cooperative Extension and their horticultural experts were actually our best advisors. But in the last, I think Isabel Shepard, who is the director of Alliance for Cape Fear Trees, came on maybe a year ago now. She's still fairly new in her role, which is amazing how much she's done. And we see ourselves as kind of sisters in the effort because most of Alliance for Cape Fear Trees work has been in Wilmington. And
Mhm.
so we're really excited to be collaborators with them as they do more and more work in Leland. And as part of that collaboration, like we will certainly have huddles about tree policy and how to advance good tree policy. But in really productive ways, we try to coordinate to support each other's efforts. So they had a tree giveaway, a couple of weeks ago here in Leland, and we elevated that. We helped staff it for volunteers. We were part of that collaboration, and we're thrilled. We're thrilled because again, we are we're we're an informal organizational
Sure.
group of people. We need those kind of anchor organizations that will really drive a lot of the productive work, and we want to just be supportive of it when that
Mhm.
work is relevant to our little town. So
So, I mean, one of the things that we just touched on a little bit briefly, and maybe you could elaborate on. I mean, certainly being able to walk from spot to spot as opposed to getting in your car
Yeah.
or riding a bike, you want to or walk. I mean, how does that play out in your organization in terms of sidewalk connectivity, whether or not it's really pedestrian friendly or not?
So, and then I want to be quiet and invite Ernie and Maggie to give their thoughts as well. But just because the walkability is something that we've been focusing on for a while, I'll start it is the town actually were kind of thought leaders in municipal spaces in North Carolina for how they did the flex code and how they did different ordinances. So, as you probably well know, now that you're on the planning board, like they have requirements in their building ordinances to require new developments and new businesses to add sidewalk frontage so that in the area where we all started, over there in the Westgate area, um, as that area developed out, the sidewalks really were being built, as that area developed, which was great. But the challenge was that people won't or aren't often using them because as anybody who kind of looks at municipal planning knows and town planning knows, walkability is several factors that coming together, not just the sidewalk. So the sidewalk are really important, but they're only one piece of the equation. So we know that pedestrians need to feel safe, pedestrians need to feel comfortable, pedestrians need to feel like it's truly an alternative, a viable alternative to cars. And so we've tried to really kind of cheer on the town's work by bringing attention to those other dimensions. And so trees, like we focus on street trees. There's a lot of important roles to plant all sorts of trees, but our priority as an effort are on street trees because they do
Right.
facilitate walkability. But in addition to that, like there are lots of new crossroad or crosswalks that either vehicle users don't know how to navigate, which creates challenge, or don't feel fully safe to the pedestrians who are using them. So one of the things that we did is we kind of tried to bring attention to, okay, these crosswalks, if made stronger or more pronounced or clearer, or we had more education, would better facilitate the walkability that the town
Mhm.
itself wants to support. And so we're working with our town team to think through, okay, so how could we build more crosswalks in the Westgate area? And frankly, how could we create them in a way that created even more of a sense of place? There's no law that says they have to be yellow striped. There's no law that says they can't be creative and artistic in renderings. Let's do something that brings and elevates our town in a way that isn't just walk for
Sure.
pedestrians, but that also brings a sense of place to our town in doing so. So,
Ernie, Maggie, any thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, like that was one of our lend a hand activities, doing a like walking survey, pedestrian survey, and I think there was like another time doing the biker
mhm.
ride, like and surveying for that of just, what people are noticing and trying to get more input from the people who are actively trying to transport around town in other ways than just the vehicle. I will say, like the traffic circle on Plouffe, I remember that going in, we were living there, and then that was built, and it was a very interesting shift because even the way that traffic circle's set up, just people didn't know how to use it, and
Mhm.
and and even now, I still feel like they don't quite know how to use it. Um, but in that time, I had noticed a slight change. It's not perfect, but I've noticed more drivers becoming aware of the pedestrians and trying to stop and yield to pedestrians. And then there's still those that just kind of zoom through. So as a pedestrian, you definitely have to be a little more vigilant, and that's something we are trying to improve because especially behind Walmart and Lowe's and the
Sure.
apartment buildings there, there's a lot of people that walk to the stores, and you can see the trails, and even going down Plouffe, you can see the trail that people walked on the side of the road. And we've looked into, how can we encourage a sidewalk getting put in here, and what would that take, and trying to research that and trying to make that more
Hmm.
more aware and try to get the whatever momentum we need to get a sidewalk there and then yeah, putting in more like crosswalks or possibly even some lights at the traffic
Sure.
circles or pedestrian crossing just to, you know, something even just a flash to get people's attention of like, hey, maybe I should slow down here. And definitely crossing 17. Like there are people that do, they cross from the one side to the other, and that is just terrifying. And hopefully in time we will get more safety measures put in and that is also just something that as a town, I mean, people
Yeah.
going through 17, they're in a hurry and it's just they don't want to stop, they don't want to slow down. And so hopefully that will be a shift of as a community of if we kind of get to the point of like, yeah, we want to be accessible in multiple ways and make a place that, you know, families feel safe and enjoy walking around and especially the crosswalk idea of, you know, creating something colorful. We want to collaborate if we can with an artist to design something that can be another lend a hand activity where we can get multiple people have sections that they can just paint and then it's another piece where families can come through and like we were a part of this and
Yeah.
just building that community and helping us be a town that we're like, yeah, we look out for each other and we want to be here.
Yeah, well, as someone who in a previous life built a two-lane roundabout, I can attest to the fact that it takes a while for people to figure out when to yield and not, and depending on where you come from, the rules are different. Different states have different rules. Ernie, I know you wanted to say something, and welcome, Brian.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, just to kind of go further on that point of with newer developments, they are required to put in the sidewalks now. It's kind of what Trish was saying is that then the challenge becomes, well, how do you connect the neighborhoods that were already existing before, rules like that became implemented? So, in the neighborhood that we lived in, we had a sidewalk through most of it, but once you get to the actual outer edges, the sidewalk stops. It's either grass or it's just, roadway. So a lot of the businesses that we frequented down Plouffe at the end of it, we we there's really not like a whole lot of space simply because there was no initial planning set up for sidewalks. But just as Maggie was saying, you can see the trails going all the way down Plouffe
Yeah,
towards these businesses, especially businesses that we had partnered with to do trash pickups.
sure.
It's it is tough. And even with the sidewalks and some of the crosswalks that were implemented, there's still a distinct lack of significant crosswalks across like the larger sections of road.
Right.
Not just 17, but going down in front of Lowe's, there's really not a whole lot that you
Mhm.
can't get across from Lowe's over to, like the like Al's Burgers or Chick-fil-A or anything like that. So, if you're trying to get to those businesses, it makes it a little dangerous to even cross in the first place. So definitely with the existing roadways and infrastructure, that's one of the things that we've constantly been trying to think of and meet with people on like how can we actually
Right.
make this work?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, you need a sort of like a gap analysis to see what is and what's not. I had a former colleague who went to William and Mary, and William and Mary would look at those paths, and then the next thing you know, a brick sidewalk was put in because they saw that people had wore enough of a path that it was being used. We only have about 2 minutes left, so I was going to ask, as you look forward um, to the future. What are your priorities for the new year? And I was going to ask you all too, is you don't need to live in Westgate to participate.
Mhm. Mhm.
all comers are welcome to help. It's all of our town.
Hmm. We
So
just
perhaps priorities and then all comers welcome.
absolutely. So, we started in Westgate because so many of us, again, that's kind of our personal origin story, and also to kind of make it really tangible and accessible for people, right? But it certainly is open to everyone. And I'll kind of kick off the conversation about strategic direction and our future priorities. Um, what's exciting is that as more people join, we really do have, I think, a stronger and perhaps higher responsibility to build community. In addition to advocating for the built environment we want and doing things to actually create the environment we want, we also have an opportunity and I think the privilege of building the community we want and creating that. So I hope that wherever the 2026 takes us, as far as our kind of key areas of trees, trash, transportation, and trails, that we'll continue to do it in a way that brings people together. Because Bob, as you said, you experienced at our last town hall meeting, like that to me is a really important piece of what builds community, is that we have to find relationship with each other. And so I hope we do it in a way that builds relationship as much as anything. But as far as our next year, it's continuing what we're doing. But as Maggie and Ernie alluded to, we think there's some real momentum in the crosswalk discussions. We know from some of our town staffers that they're absolutely paying attention to that. So we're hoping to leverage that attention to do some more good work in that area. And then continuing doing what we've been doing and hopefully engaging more people who can help us do more, right? Like we are a small beer board, and we certainly invite not only people to join our events, but we really would love more people to join kind of the group that kind of drives those events. So we're always very excited about when people are excited about what we're doing. So
Well,
Maggie, Ernie,
Yeah, and
yeah.
just really, yeah, really quick, like Trish said earlier, we're not an organization, but we are working to become more, um, I don't know what the word I'm
Formalized.
looking, more official, I guess, and more organized, and trying to become official. That is, a year-long goal to actually, have our name be something that is an official name.
We're thanks to Brian, we've taken our first steps towards establishing a nonprofit.
okay.
So
That's great. I mean, again, for those who are viewing, it's relivehereleland.org. Check out their website. They have some nice photos of their events, but a place where you can sign up to get news and volunteer opportunities. I want to thank you all for taking time on a Sunday night just before Thanksgiving to talk about this. But again, I think it's really important to see the positive things that are happening in Leland and how people can take individual actions to collectively help the community as a whole. With that, I just want to say thank you very much and wish you all a safe holiday.
thank you, Bob, and
Thank
thank
you.
Beer
Thanks for
Board.
having us.